Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, we've discussed some of the considerations we need to think about for this thing. We know what it's going to look like, so now it's just a question of actually building it. So we'll start by creating a new project. I'm just going to throw one on my desktop here for the sake of ease, and I'm going to open it up in a code editor. So we'll begin with getting some project structure in here. We'll need a CSS folder for our CSS. We'll need a fonts folder, which will put our web symbols font in. Remember, we're going to have to download that. We need an image folder, although this tutorial doesn't actually need any images, but we're going to be using an image to represent the web page in the background. So for the sake of argument, we'll stick that in there as well. And that's actually it. There's no JavaScript, so we're going to need an HTML file, and we're going to need a CSS file. That's your lot. Now we'll kick things off with an empty HTML5 document. There we go. Should look fairly familiar to you. The HTML5 doc type. Here we're referencing our CSS file. We've given it a title. This is a conditional comment to bring in the HTML5 shiv script should somebody be using Internet Explorer. And the only other noteworthy thing, sorry, I'll just change that to a class, is that we've given our body a class of logged in. Now we'll do that in order to target it in the CSS and shove it down below our admin bar to begin with. This will then be added dynamically depending on what you're actually using this for. Okay, so with that all done, we may as well just kick off by adding the first bit of markup, which is some kind of container element for our nav bar. I'm using a nav element itself. Questionable whether you want to use that. It might be safer just to stick with the div. You might think that it's not really appropriate for this, and you might be right, but for the time being we'll just use this. It's as good as any. Okay, so we'll give that a class, an ID of admin bar. Now let's just have a quick look at our PSD and remind ourselves what we're trying to build here. We have our bar itself, which we've just dictated, and what it's filled with is a series of groups. We've got a group of 2 objects here to begin with for our welcome message. We have a group here of 2 for our icons. This is arguably a group of just 1 for notifications, and then this is clearly a group of 3 buttons here as well. So we're going to represent these groups with unordered lists, and each of these items within our groups are going to be list items. So we'll begin with our welcome message. That was an unordered list which consisted of firstly a list item for our Gravatar, and then secondly there was our welcome message itself. So I'll just write this in here. Actually, it's not within an anchor, so I'll just write welcome admin, and this anchor we'll just use as our logout button for that person to log out with. So that's done, a good start. Secondly, we wanted a UL in order to house our icon buttons. If I remember correctly, I think one was an S. We'll be changing these characters, of course, to the icons with our font face. I think that might have been a K, I'm not sure, it doesn't really matter for the time being. But we need to identify these, and we'll give them a class of icon so that we can apply the font family later on. So that's those 2 dealt with. There was a single one further along the line, which was a D, I think. Again, doesn't really matter. That was for our bright yellow button. I'll just bring it back for you. That was for this one here. Now we've got our single solitary notification button, which will not have a class of icon. So we'll just put that in there like so. And then we had that group of 3. Which we'll just fill with random text. Really doesn't matter. The middle one we're actually going to use as our menu, and the last one something along those lines. Now we do need to differentiate all these here from our first group, so we're going to give all these ULs a class just to do that, and we'll call that class controls. Goes on that one, and that one. We'll leave our search bar for the time being. We'll leave the drop down menu for a later video. Same goes for the tooltip and these little notifications here. But the rest of the structure we've got pretty well laid out there. That's looking pretty good and nice and clean as well. So we'll save that and we'll bring it up and have a look how that's going. That's in this one, sorry. This is the final result, and this is what we have so far. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is reset our styles. Because if we look at our finished product, what we're doing, if you remember, is we're injecting this whole HTML structure and the accompanying styles into an existing HTML page. And that means it's going to automatically take on any of the CSS styling that's applied to that page. So in order to combat that, we're going to have to reset the styles. So I'm going to take you here to Eric Mayer's famous and commonly used reset.css. We'll grab all these rules here, and that's what we're going to use to kick off our style sheet with. So in our style CSS, we'll paste that in there. I just want to get rid of these line breaks here, so I'll do that now. Just replace all those, and this one as well, and that one there, and that one. And as it's often recommendable to tidy up any CSS instead of just dragging it in and using it as is. For example, we don't need any table rules, we need nothing to do with block quotes. So we can get rid of those. The bodies are relevant, as is the HTML, so we can get rid of that. An awful lot of these we probably don't need either, but we'll keep them in for the sake of argument. Now, as it stands at the moment, we'd actually be resetting the entire page, which obviously isn't what we want. We need to be resetting our admin bar, but keeping that isolated so that it doesn't influence anything beyond its boundaries. So in order to do that, we need to alter our reset slightly. We're going to take the ID of admin bar and just prepend everything. Hang on, take a comma and a space, and we're going to prepend everything with the ID of our admin bar. Replace. Okay, just make sure that all these rules have that to begin with. And that means that all these elements within our admin bar are going to be nicely reset, zeroed, but these rules obviously won't affect anything outside of our admin bar. Okay, so we'll save that. Just have a quick look back at our admin bar, and as you can see, that's reset everything quite neatly. Alright, that's a good start. I just want to bring this avatar in, which we're doing using this anchor to begin with. Now we're going to style an anchor and use an inline style to bring that Gravatar image in as the background, and that means we'll be able to round the corners using a border radius style. Just bringing a solid image in wouldn't do that at all, so that's what we're going to do. I'll start by give you some basic styling for it. I'm just going to have a little Gravatar section here, and it was our admin bar. Again, I'm only going to be editing things within our admin bar ID just to keep things perfectly isolated. It was in a UL, and it was a list item with the class of avatar, and we're targeting the anchor within that. So I want to firstly display it as a block, which will allow me to edit the dimensions, a width and a height of 30 pixels. I'll give it a background here, just so we can see what we're doing. Doesn't matter what colour I give it. And I wanted to add a little margin to the right hand side of it, just to separate it from the welcome message. Lastly, of course, I wanted to add a border radius of 3 pixels, and I'll just copy and paste that a couple of times to add some vendor prefixes to deal with the Mozilla and WebKit browsers. Okay, save that, and if we just jump back in here and I refresh the page, there is our neat little Gravatar image, but we need to actually inject our Gravatar into the background. So we do that by, I'm going to do that in line. So we'll come over to our element here, and I'm going to add a style attribute and give it a background with a URL. Now I need to actually go and grab the URL. We do that by pointing at the Gravatar website, and we identify our image using the email address of the particular user. Now you can't actually include the email address in the string. You first have to convert it to a hash value, and if you go to the Gravatar site you can find out an easy way of doing that. They give you a PHP example of how you just switch your email address, stripping out spaces and things, into a portable hash value. If you don't actually include a valid hash value, such as this, then it will bring in the default Gravatar image instead. Lastly, we add on a little parameter there which dictates the size of our image. So this is going to be a 30 pixel by 30 pixel square Gravatar image. Great, so I'll save that, and we'll refresh the page. Which one are we looking at? This one. And you can see it's brought in the default Gravatar image there. Okay, so that's looking quite good. Obviously missing a huge amount of styling, but we'll tackle that in the next video. So for the time being, go and grab a cup of tea, and thanks for watching.